church supposed to be like? What is the church going to be like? Jesus decides to tell them a parable. It starts at verse number 24, same chapter in the book of Matthew. You know, Matthew was a tax collector. You know, he was one of those folks nobody wanted to be around. He was like having the IRS looking and watching you all the time, trying to see where they could catch you. Matthew has written this gospel, and he's given us this story that Jesus told his disciples and others who were there to hear. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. Now, tare is the weed I'm talking about. Amen. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servant of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, an enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? Well, go and remove the weeds. That's what he asked. He wants to do that. He said, no, let both of them grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now, Jesus is very careful here. He gives them an explanation of this parable. He does. He does. He calls them together, and he goes into the house, and they disciples came to him, and they declare of him, what does this parable of the tares or weeds mean? Now, let me give you an understanding of the story. He said there was a man who went out to plant. He planted some wheat. Y'all know wheat, amen. Wheat, amen. He planted some wheat, amen, and he planted that wheat in his field, amen. And then he says they left, and while men slept, an enemy came in and planted some weeds in the field, amen. His workers discovered these weeds. They said, now, master, we know you planted wheat. But where did these weeds come from? He said, an enemy did that. An enemy, while you were asleep, an enemy did that. Planted weeds in our good field. And I want you to know something. Now, this master, it was his field. It was his field. Amen. Those was his servants in the field. Amen. And somebody else came and planted in his field. Now, some of y'all need to stay in your own lane. Get out of your lane. Get out of your lane. You get out of your lane. Amen. I'm talking about weeds. You know how weeds, they growing everywhere. They all out of their lane. You know, I don't want them weeds over there, and over here. I don't want weeds nowhere. Amen. And if it was up to me, amen, we'd have to pull them all up. You know, he says the kingdom of heaven operates kind of like this parable. He said kingdom of heaven. He said this spiritual realm that we're in, this thing we call the church, amen, we can get some bad folk up in here. And I don't care how good I'm teaching, I got to go to sleep sometime. I don't care how good a parent you are. I don't care how you raise Susie and Johnny and whoever, Daphne or whatever her name is. Amen. Somewhere down the line, you're going to get lax because you are human. You're going to get lax. Amen. And some stuff you didn't put in there, going to get in there. He said church work like this, it's going to be good and bad together. Ain't no use you talking about going to a church that is perfect